And I said, you know, I know that the AIs get pros and cons that we can talk about for a minute if we want. But what I said was, I'm going to be the most open-minded 64-year-old person in America with AI who doesn't understand it. There are people who certainly understand at that age, but I don't I'm not a technological
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
I'm a sales guy. Okay. You want to sell something? I'm your guy. You want to build something? Talk to my son. He's an engineer.
Financial independence.
Freedom.
Financial picture.
Independent financially.
Financial future.
Financial freedom and wealth.
Financial independence.
Get your fill. Financial independence and long life. Hello, welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. We bring really interesting, cool people on to help us, and that's why I'm excited. John Solleder is with us today. He's cool. You're going to really learn some cool shit from him. He's a 42-year entrepreneur, 4-time author, 2 of those bestsellers. He has been a mastermind for 4 network marketing companies. He's been the guidance person, the mentor for 2 billionaires in the network's marketing space. So he is the authority. He's the go-to person. If you're you're going to start a network marketing company, you need to talk to John. So John, I have a lot of questions for you, but let's just start with some real basic stuff. How would you define network marketing for people who, not really understand what that encompasses?
Really, it's taking a manufactured product by somebody else. Somebody else has the financial ability to manufacture a product that you can be the end seller of. Kind of like if you look at the beverage industry, for example, the most money is generally made in the beverage industry by the end seller. Okay. They make more profit than all the people along the line. That's kind of how network marketing works. You, as a distributor, can actually make more money marketing somebody else's product that they've put the manufacturing expense in, the warehousing expense in, all the other ancillary expenses into. You take it to the marketplace, you actually make the lion's share of the money.
Yeah. So I think when a lot of people think about network marketing, they think of that MLM model. Do you think that there's sort of the same?
It's the same. I mean, there's different definitions that, MLM is a tiered approach where,
Yeah.
I introduce you, you introduce your next door neighbor, they introduce
Right.
your next door neighbor, and you get paid on all of that. That would be multi-level.
Yeah.
Direct selling is also used in that context because you also are taking the product to the end consumer who says, I don't want to sell it. I just want to use it and be a customer. Okay. So that's kind of like the direct selling part of it. And then the multi-level part is if you choose to build a business. How the industry started was really for what was called pin money. And pin money was basically where a woman, the industry was really started by women for the most part, going way back to people in the 1920s, believe it or not, in Mississippi, were probably the real first true direct selling company or multi-level company, if you will. Started by a Black woman, by the way. Most people don't know that. And there's a great documentary, and I'm going to forget the name of it, that LeBron James put the money behind a couple of years ago. People can Google it and they can see it. That was really kind of the first network marketing or multi-level company. Prior to that, though, you had companies like Avon, for example, and Watkins that were real direct selling companies. They knocked on your door and said, Avon calling, and they had their lipsticks or their skin cream or whatever, and people bought it. Fuller Brush comes to mind.
Right. Yeah.
I guess I knew I was going to be in direct sales when I was about 3, and the Fuller Brush man used to come to our house, and I used to take this little scrubber and scrub the stairs with it. So maybe that was foreshadowing my future. I remember that. It just popped in my head. I remember washing my mom's stairs, but it really started. It really started getting big in the late 50s, early 60s with direct selling companies where products started to be sold really at the lunch hour, where a woman would say, hey, I got this lipstick, or I've got this whatever.
Yeah.
And it's to go with their girlfriends at lunch, and they show them the product. And if they bought it, the money became what was called pin money, where they literally would pin it in their blouse. And by doing so, that became the piano lesson money for the kids, or the violin lesson, or the karate lesson, or the whatever that the husband didn't know about. So
Right.
for the most part, industry driven by women over the years. That's kind of how it all started. And it's grown. It's gotten very, very large around the world. There's probably no, well, there's a few exceptions, but there's probably no country in the world that doesn't have some participation from the network marketing industry. People want opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's really, kind of what I've done for all of these years is give not only sales expertise. I built some major organizations. I mean, my current organization has over 1 million people in it. So, we've built some major businesses ourselves, but we've also given guidance to other people, company owners, top distributors that, want to do the same thing that I've done, that want to learn from my experience because it's a strange business. You can study it and you can theorize it or you can actually do it. I'm one of those guys that did it. So I get drawn into conversations with people who say, oh, you've actually done it. And I use it because I'm also a lifelong athlete and mostly martial arts. So I'm like, yeah, you got to get your nose bloodied once in a while. You got to actually talk to somebody who's actually been a distributor and done it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I come into play a lot of times with different
So
situations.
is it, which direction does it normally go from? So is it a company that says, I have this thing to distribute, so I want to create this model? Or is it a person saying, I'm an entrepreneur and I want to sell something, so let me find some products, right? You know what I'm saying? Like top up or bottom up or top down.
More top down, more
Yeah.
companies that say, like for example, my current company, its main product came as a research study at McGill University in Montreal, starting way back in 1975. An entrepreneur put money into the research till 1996, 21 years without making a dime, just researched the product all over the world at different medical institutions. Finally said, well, the stuff works. Now, how do we sell it? Now, how do
Yeah.
we monetize it? Right? We,
Yeah.
we, we know it works. We've got provability. We've got patents. We got all that kind of stuff. Now, what do I do with this stuff?
Yeah.
So he reached out to a drug company in Chicago. They said, well, unfortunately, for us to get our mark, the product would have to be a ridiculous price, like $300 a box. And then they stick it on the shelves at Walgreens, and you got a $10 an hour kid after school that somebody's going to say, how does this work? They're not going to sell $300 box, so it wasn't going to work. So, like in that case, this gentleman's name was Dieter Beer. He got counsel from another guy in Montreal who had been a little bit in the network marketing industry and said, you probably should sell that, network marketing because word of mouth's going to sell that product.
Right.
So sometimes an entrepreneur, manufacturer, sometimes scientist, developer will have a product and say, how do I get this out to the marketplace? Because if you have a product that's technical and needs to be explained,
Yeah.
you need a sales force that's going to have the communication skills to do so with their next door neighbors. So not over a cup of coffee, say, let me show you how this stuff
Right.
works. Right. So that's kind of how that's all works. So it's really more top down. From the other aspect, for a smaller person who says, hey, I've got some product ideas, you know what? My suggestion to those people, find a good company, find a product that you're passionate about, start to sell it. And then if you have a product that you think fits that model, talk to your ownership or leadership and say, look, I got a product that fits in here. Can you at least take a look at it?
Yeah.
So that happens a lot, by the way. A lot of great products in network marketing come from people in the field who say, I've either developed it or I got a family member that's developed something great.
Yeah.
How do we get this out to the marketplace?
Yeah, because it is quite a specific thing, right? Especially like you're talking about something technical where you have to be able to explain it to a layperson. And that requires, right? I mean, I would think a big part of this is understanding how you're going to relay this, like relating it to a real world thing. Like, I mean, what sort of medical product can, well, okay, I'm not being very articulate at the moment. Let me back up. So something that does, I have a person in one of my networking groups, and she has some sort of a product that stimulates hair growth. So
Okay.
that's something that's kind of easy to understand. But she's marketing it toward women, as women, sometimes women, as they age, they start to lose their hair. So that's like her demographic. And I can see that as like, you're not necessarily going to make a billboard that says, hi, losing your hair. But it seems like the kind of thing where, so you can come in, there's like a free demonstration, whatever. And it's not network marketing, but it feels like more of a hands-on. I couldn't think of a really good example of a
That
product
would,
that is not immediately easy to understand what it does and how it
well,
works and why you'd want it.
and that's a perfect example because that's something that probably A needs to be demonstrated, right?
Yeah.
B, it's a sensitive subject because no woman, bad enough guys when they lose their hair. I've been lucky. I still have mine, which is amazing. That's all nutrition, I think. If my father had none when he was my age, but he didn't live that long either. But uh, a product like your friend has, okay, that would be a great product for MLM, but it's also a great product that you could probably sell, okay, through estheticians, through hair salons,
Yeah.
okay, where you could actually do a different business model with something like that, where it's just direct distribution. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It would be like a B2B model. You know what I mean? We're like, okay, you wholesale it to in quantity to a hair salon, let the hair people, say, hey, Mary, your hair's getting a little thin. Why don't you try it? Right?
Yeah, I have a great solution for you because and Mary might come to them saying, "Oh gosh, can you cut my hair in a way that doesn't make it look so thin because I'm losing some hair," right? They
Exactly.
might come to you with that problem.
Exactly, exactly. So there's different models. I mean, there's pros and cons to network marketing. Frankly, a lot of government intervention. Okay, FTC, all that kind of stuff. Okay, they watch us, and they probably should because there's some people that over promote what they have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you make $1 million in a week.
Yeah,
No, no, in a lifetime, yeah, in 20 years, yeah, 10 years, yeah, but in a week, no, probably not.
probably not.
So and by the way, most of us that are legitimately in the industry, we hate that stuff too, because it makes all of us get painted with that same brush that you're a bunch of con artists, right? When
Right,
we're not,
right.
just like there's honest car salesmen, there's honest insurance salesmen, there's honest realtors, and there's dishonest and all of those things,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
the bad guy gives the 10 get a bad reputation because of the one bad guy, you know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
most network marketing people, it's like, hey, you get in the industry because you want to make extra money. That's how I got in. For me, it wasn't even extra money. For me, it was money, period, because I was a college kid. I was about to graduate. It's 1983. The economy's still kind of in a bad shape. And a friend of mine who I had wrestled with in high school and I were at the same gym working out one day, and he says to me, hey, you can join my business for $32. Now, the sad part was $32 in 1983, I didn't have.
Yeah.
But I said, if I can write you a check and you can hold the check, I can join your business. Well, and then I went out and I made $800 the first month.
Wow.
And remember that now, in 1983,
Yeah.
two things. Number one, people generally didn't have credit cards.
Hmm.
So people paid you, they wrote you a personal check or they gave you cash. So
Yeah.
I had like $800 in my wallet at the end of the first month when I'm graduating college. And I'm like, this is a pretty good situation. Like I'm actually making money. I covered the $32 check, by the way. If somebody asked me that the other day, did you cover that check? Of course I did. You know, and
So what were you selling at that point?
my first business was with Herbalife. That was where I
Okay.
started way back. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, they had some difficulty with the FDA about a year and a half into my business.
Mm.
But I had learned the business, and from there, it's an interesting story about entrepreneurship. But from there, I decided to go into the life insurance business because I was like, I don't know about this network marketing thing. And I learned some really great lessons in the insurance business that I still hold to this day. One of which was I would have a lot of clients that were about the age I am now, and I would sit with them and I would do their finances, and I'd realize they can't stay in their house when they retire. So I became very dedicated to number one, me setting up a separate retirement account, which I did and funded every single year. I mean, Congress gives you a tax deduction to do it. Why aren't you doing it? You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
if you listen to this and you're in small business, why aren't you taking advantage of the fact that our government basically says, we want you to invest for your future. We're going to give you a tax advantage. So I started doing that. I became religious about that. But the other thing I learned was about sales leadership. A really valuable lesson. I was in Manhattan at a meeting, about 1,000 sales reps. And the gentleman doing the meeting was a guy named Bob Crimmins. And I think he eventually became president and met at one time. I'm not sure about that. But he stood up and he talked about the fact that one of the top agents in MetLife, that when he would call him, normally he'd be multitasking. He'd be on the phone and he'd be looking at reports and trying to do two things at once. But when this individual, who had a very funny name, by the way, the guy's name was Mehdi Fakazadi, he's Persian. And when Mady would call him, he would put down everything and he'd listen. because he said, when your top people call you, you pay attention because they either have an opportunity or a problem, and either one you need to pay attention to. And that sales management lesson stayed with me when I got back in network marketing, like, full time in everything, whether it was dealing with a company owner, whether it was dealing with a top distributor. It was like, you got to listen, because most of the time somebody who's successful doesn't come to you to talk about, how the Red Sox did last night.
Right.
I know you're a Boston girl.
Right.
Like they really don't. They don't have that kind of time. Yes,
Right.
yeah, they won, they lost, big deal. Let's move on, right? Unbusy people have time to talk about all that stuff, right?
Right.
So a busy person that's successful, they're calling you as a part of the cog in the wheel of the sales process
Yeah.
or the building a business process. They're calling you because they either identified that, wow, we got a great opportunity we got to look at, or we got a challenge that we got to look at. So when I heard Crimmins say that day, that stayed with me all these years. And I've been really good with that over the years, listening when somebody says, hey, John, I need your time. Okay, what do you need my time for? Well, I got this situation. Sometimes we can solve it, sometimes we can't. Sometimes that's beyond my expertise. But at the end of the day, I learned to listen really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a skill. It's something that people seems to come naturally to everyone.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, what would you say um, when you're thinking about, so people, if you're a business owner, I guess I'm trying to determine, like, because there are a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to this show, and maybe their sales are not what they feel they should be. So, how could they decide if their product is a good fit for network marketing, if that's maybe something that they should be exploring?
Well, the best thing to do is to go to a network marketing leader in your area. Find somebody in your community that's in the industry, okay, with a similar product. For example, okay, your friend with a hair care product, like, she wouldn't come to a company like Primerica, for example, that sells life insurance.
Right.
They're not going to sell a hair care product. It's not what they do,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of companies that sell products that are personal care products, skincare products, hair care products, etc. That would maybe look at a product like that and say, hey, yeah, you got a great thing here. We'll either buy it from you, or we'll do, a strategic alliance or whatever, business deal that they make that makes sense to carry that product and that brand. That would be the best way to do it, is to find companies. And by the way, in the network marketing space, there's everything from motor oil to life insurance to legal services to lots of vitamins, lots of nutrition, lots of skincare, lots of hair care. So realistically, you're going to find something that makes some sense. Um, and there's even people doing financial things with Bitcoin and stuff that I'm personally against, because you can't really sell money. The government kind of has a problem with that, so I wouldn't suggest people do that. But yeah, if you have a tangible product, if you're a manufacturer, you're a developer, you're a scientist, and you say, what am I going to do with this product? You should look at the network marketing space, because you're going to need people to tell your story about how that product came into being. And people, by the way, people love stories. It's not like, if we look at the, Steve Jobs, right, with this phone, it's like, if we just say, well, here's a phone. Whereas here's a phone that has more technology than was used to launch the original space shuttle. That's a story. Really? Tell me more about that phone, John. Well, let me tell you about all these apps and all this crazy stuff you can do with it. Wow, that's really interesting. You know,
Oh, you're
I
right. And people love to be drawn in, right? They love a story. And especially if the story involves, like, the founder story, right? That's so important to understand. Like, I'm buying this thing to support this person, or to support this lifestyle, or this community, or whatever, right? There's a whole lot of that goes into people's decision making,
exactly, exactly,
feeling good about what you're buying, about what I really want this thing, but I'm only buying it because I'm supporting, because for every pair of shoes I buy, they're going to buy a pair of shoes for some stranger I'm never going to meet. Isn't that great?
Well, and to that point, network marketing people they're your next door neighbor. Your kid plays little league with their kid. You go to church with them. I mean, they're just people,
Yeah.
So when you buy a product from them, you are supporting a small local business. Yes, there's some big company that owns it, maybe somewhere along the line. Okay, but you're supporting that person, that primary person that you dealt with and you bought that product from. They're benefiting financially, so you're actually helping a small local business, and I think that's really important. I think that that's something that philosophically, I know I feel good about it. I buy a lot of products from network marketing companies, because I like the products, I understand what they do, but also I know, hey, you know what? I'm helping out somebody who maybe, needs the money.
Yeah, no, that's great. You brought up Primerica earlier. I actually have a couple friends who work for Primerica. I have some other people I know who work for other sort of financial, um, like life insurance sort of companies, but they feel like a different model to me, and maybe they're not, but they feel different to me than just, for example, MetLife, which I guess you said. Would you say that that's sort of the same type of philosophy as of network marketing that as, for example, a Primerica?
Well, yeah. I mean, MetLife's not network marketing, of course, and
Yeah.
Primerica is. I mean, Primerica was started by it used to be called A.L. Williams. A guy named Art Williams started that company. He was a football coach in Atlanta, and it grew into Primerica. It was sold to Citigroup a number of years ago, and I don't know if they still own it or not. I think they
Yeah.
do, but I could be
Mhm.
mistaken in that. But yeah, the idea there was, hey, you know what? In the insurance industry, recruiting's always happened. MetLife, Prudential, all those companies are always recruiting agents. So what they did, what Art Williams did, very wise, he put in a network marketing component of recruiting with field agents to say, okay, you get to a certain level and you got this many offices or whatever, and I'm going to pay an override.
Yeah.
Because the insurance company would pay that anyway. He just did it in a little bit different manner than other people did. So they've grown nicely. They're a very large company. Very
And that's really a good example, though, of like, so two companies essentially selling the same product, but using a very different methodology
yeah.
to recruit not just agents, but also clients, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And the client doesn't care. The client just wants to know, hey, when I die, your company's going to pay out this money. And the funny thing is, when I worked for Met way back, with my network marketing background, I would constantly be having people try to recruit me for A.L. Williams, right? And it was like, well, MetLife and A.L. Williams at that time were like enemies. Today they sell each other's products. They like all these insurance companies. They have all these mutual things that they do together with different products and brands. It's like I bought my son and daughter's 529C plan through a Primerica agent that I knew at the gym. And the funny part is, the contract comes out as written by MetLife.
Like, wait a minute.
It's like, what? I thought you guys hated each other. It's like, well, no, as long as you pay the premiums, they all like you.
Right, exactly. You can be friends with everybody.
Exactly, exactly. So the industry, like most industries, there's been a metamorphosis of collaboration in industries where competitors sometimes collaborate rather than compete because it just makes sense.
Well, and you could, before we started the recording, we were talking about pivoting and agility. And I feel like in some ways, this is, it's within the industry, you're looking at what exists today and you're saying, okay, I'm going to pivot a little bit here. I'm going to change the model a little so that I can get to, so they can reimagine this thing and maybe do it differently. So I would just like you to talk about pivoting in life. And if you want to tie it up with the insurance company, you can do that too.
Oh,
But
well, here's where my pivot and agility came. So, you get a little older and you start writing more. And my background was I always thought I was going to be a journalist, and I really wanted to be Oscar Madison. I really wanted to be a sports journalist, go to the ballpark, write about ball games. Well, and I found out back in 1983 that didn't pay very well. I went on one job interview and it paid 12 grand a year. So I
yeah,
was
it was
like,
a little too much fun,
yeah,
unfortunately, to actually be money making.
it looked like a lot of fun. It probably is, but it was like, okay, financially, I don't know if I'm going to do that. So that very same week, I run into a guy at the gym who introduces me to network marketing. The next month, I go to my college commencement. Ronald Reagan talks about mentorship, okay, and that when 1932, when he couldn't find a job, he had a guy who was a successful business guy that said to him, "Hey, Dutch, what you need to do," they used to call him Dutch back then. What you need to do is find a business that you like, that you're passionate about, and have somebody mentor you. So I'm thinking, I'm 30 days into my business. I made $800. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm finding these people in that company in Herbalife that were teaching me stuff. And then the very next month in June, I heard a guy up in Hartford, not too far from where you live, say, for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. And that's when I realized that the brand I had to work on was me.
Yeah.
Whether I'm selling insurance, whether I'm selling multi-level, whether I'm selling cars, whether I'm selling real estate, whether I'm selling whatever,
Yeah.
I'm really selling John at the end of the day.
Right. Exactly.
If people like me and they think I'm competent, they're going to buy,
Right.
assuming they can afford whatever it is I'm selling, right?
Right.
Uh,
Exactly.
so I started to work on my self-development. I started to study people like Earl Nightingale, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale.
Yep.
Jim Rohn actually made that statement for things to change. I didn't know who he was. I found out who he was, and
Yep.
Tom Hopkins and all of those guys, Zig Ziglar, and
Yep.
anyway, all the greats back from the 40s,
Right.
50s, 60s started to read all their different stuff. But
Yep.
anyway, fast forward 40, 38, whatever years later, I write this book, which is like, okay, this is going to be my book on techniques in network marketing, moving up 2020. And it's going to come out in December 2019, just in time for Christmas, right? Get it out there in the marketplace, Amazon, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
February 2020, I got this book coming out.
Perfect. Right.
And of course, I'm booked in 60 cities because not only with my own company, which is international, but with some of my friends in the industry that said, hey, they're either in the book or they're friends of mine or that want to help me out. And they know my book is agnostic. It doesn't talk about one company. It talks about the
Right. Right.
industry. Right? So it's going to help their distributors like it would help my distributors.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, I got 60 cities I'm supposed to go to in 2020. Oh, I'm in the first one, Monterrey, Mexico. And I get on an airplane and I come back here to Dallas. On my way back to Canada, eventually, I was going to a meeting in Dallas and then a meeting in Baltimore. And then I was going back to Canada for a couple of weeks, watch my kid play hockey. And all of a sudden, I start hearing about this virus. Huh. Well, it's in China. Well, that's too bad for those people. But at the end of the day, what does that have to do with me? I get on the plane in Monterey. I land in Dallas. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be in Dallas 2 days. I'm going to Baltimore to a meeting. American Airlines says, you're not going anywhere. This is the last flight coming to
You're
DFW.
lucky you got home, is what
Yeah,
they
exactly,
right.
exactly. So it's like, well, okay, well, what do I do? I can cry.
Yep.
I've got about $50,000 tied up in books, inventory, etc. All right, what am I going to do here? Okay, so I said, you know what? Let me start doing podcasts. And that's where my podcast started. Ironically called Leave Nothing to Chance, or under my name on YouTube. You can find it, or all the other search engines. But anyway, that's where that came. I also started meetings every Saturday. I was telling you about. I started a meeting on Saturday afternoons, 1 o'clock Central Time. So it was like 12 in Denver and 11 in California and
Yep.
2 o'clock in the East. And I would have a meeting, and I'd have some of the doctors from my company on there, and some of my distributors, and even some outside authors, whoever I could get. Just make it interesting because people are like dying to do something. I hired a disc jockey, friend of mine in Baltimore. I said, I'll give you $50 a week. You're sitting at home with all your equipment. You've got nothing to do. Get on these calls, and at the end, just take requests. And there were times I would go in the other room after the calls, and people would be dancing in their living rooms on my Zoom camera. It was hysterical. But what it did was it kept people engaged during a very dark period.
Yeah.
It gave them something to look forward to. And
Well, they need community too during that time. People were just feeling so isolated.
exactly. Books sold. I made money on the books. My network marketing business actually grew in that period. Okay. It's actually gotten more difficult now. It was growing like crazy during COVID. But because people had nothing to do, they need to be engaged. So what happened then? Okay, a few years go by. And all of a sudden it's like, so that was the pivot, by the way. For me, if you think about that from a sports side, just think about it like basketball, right?
Yep.
If we're playing basketball and
Can't pass the air. Ooh,
right,
okay.
you're coming down the court, you're going to throw me the ball. I got to pivot to turn around, throw the ball in the ring, into the hoop, right? So same idea. Okay, I had to pivot in my business because I could have said, well, I'm supposed to go to 60 cities, and I could feel sorry for myself, or I could pivot. And in business, especially in small business, we've
Yeah.
got to pivot constantly. Okay.
Absolutely.
If you're not pivoting, you're dying.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Okay. And you
Well,
and
or you're sitting around complaining, right? I mean, which is dying, but that's what it's so interesting to me that people from COVID seem to have fallen into either one of the two camps. There wasn't a lot of middle ground. You were either like pivoting and you're like, oh, one restaurant is putting up a little canopy so that they can do drive through that they never could do before. And the other restaurant's going out of business, like right next door, right down the street. And it's just because somebody said, "Oh, an opportunity. How can we leverage this?" And the other one's going, "Oh, no, the sky is falling," right? So it's all absolutely the way you're looking at things.
absolutely, absolutely. And so that was the pivot for me, was during COVID. It opened my eyes. It also opened my eyes to something else, that for till that point, 37, 38 years, we tell people that network marketing is a home-based business, work from home. And then we say, come to the Holiday Inn on Tuesday night for the meeting. And you go, well, wait a minute. You just told me I'm going to work from home. How am I working from home if I'm coming to the hotel? So I said, you know what? Let me adopt all the technologies that I can to work right from here, right from this chair. Okay. Because if COVID doesn't go away, or something follows it even worse, which could have happened, thank God it didn't. And by the way, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. There's no guarantees we don't get hit with something crazy like this
Yeah,
again, right?
absolutely.
So you got to be prepared. You got to be up on the technology. So that's where kind of where the pivot came. The the next part of that was the agility. I was getting a little to the point where I was thinking, I'm in my 60s. Okay, I keep hearing about AI, and I kind of was like this. I kind of was like, I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me about AI. I don't want to know about AI. And then all of a sudden, last October, I get an email from a guy telling me about using AI. Oh no, he wrote me an email to get on my show. He got on my show, and then after my show, he said, "How I contacted you was through AI." Like, really? It's really interesting. I go back and I read the email I got. I go, "This is really well written." AI can do that. Okay, fair enough. And I said, I know that the AI's got pros and cons that we can talk about for a minute if we want. But what I said was, I'm going to be the most open-minded 64-year-old person in America with AI who doesn't understand it. There are people who certainly understand at that age, but I don't I'm not a technological
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
I'm a sales guy. Okay, you want to sell something? I'm your guy. You want to build something? Talk to my son. He's an engineer. Right. So anyhow, the agility came where I said, okay, with AI, I got to be willing to move this way. I got to be willing to move this way because it's got so many verticals and horizontals in it. Okay, with what you can do with it. Like most people think it's Chat GPT. I mean, that's like going to Google and saying, let me ask directions. Okay, it'll give you directions, but you're missing everything else it'll do. AI can do remarkable things, including a lot of the work in business that we don't want to do.
Absolutely. It's my unpaid assistant. I love it.
Exactly. Do what we do best.
Yeah,
Communicate, sell, market, right? Relate. Do what we can only do as a human being, and let the robots do what they need to do.
right.
Now, the downside of that is AI going to replace a lot of jobs? Is it already? Yeah, it is. I was in California 2 weeks ago. There's a restaurant now that is 100% robots. 100%. There's one in Dallas I eat at once in a while. You get served by a robot, but you still pay a human being on the way out. Okay.
They
Uh,
don't trust those robots with the money.
no, no. You just those robots, who knows what their agenda is. But my point is this: because we live in a day and age where AI is going to be such an influence, like I always tell people, it's AI or die. If you don't use AI, your business is going to die. Plain and simple.
Yeah,
But use it, put it to work for the right stuff. Put it to work for the stuff that you don't want to do, you don't care to do, you're not good at. Let it do
right.
that.
Exactly.
And you focus on what you can do that you're really good at, that's going to give you the most money and the most reward from the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that was a big step for me. I got to be honest with you, because like I said, I'm not a technology person. I wasn't going to study every little bit of it, but I was like, when I understood what it could do, that I could actually replicate just with my podcast, okay, the equivalent of listening to 40,000 hours of podcasting a night using robots. Okay. I was like, if I went to the local high school and I hired every kid that graduated in May and said, okay, for the rest of your career, I'm going to pay you to listen to shows every single night and see who I should contact. Okay. Couldn't happen.
But they can't remember them anyway. So they're not, even if you wanted to do that, it would be a
Exactly.
terrible idea.
Exactly. So that's the kind of crazy thing that it can do. I do some work for a magazine called Top Doctor Magazine. I do some interviews for John Hyland, the owner of it, with doctors. And I'm talking to doctors a lot. I'm saying, like, Doc, give me an example of how you use AI. So I'm interviewing this doctor a couple of weeks ago from California. And he said, sorry to drink the water, folks. I've had 4 shows back to back, so it's a
Oh
little,
yeah, you got to drink water.
and it's only 105 here today. You're lucky you're in Boston. But anyway, so I said to this doctor, I said, how are you using AI in your practice? And he said, I've always had to be the bad guy with patients. I let AI become the bad guy. I said, how so? He said, let's say I got a guy that comes in that's been smoking for 40 years. And I say, okay, right now you're healthy, but your life expectancy because you're a smoker, let's see what AI says it is. And he plugs in AI. AI actually acts as the actuary, right? To say, okay, Bob, here's how long you're going to live if you continue to puff 4 packs of cigarettes a day. He says, so now me as the doctor, I'm not the bad guy.
Yeah, I
Well,
like it.
here's what
It's a good
AI.
idea.
So
Y-
maybe you should get, Nick a Red or something, and let's get you off the smokes. Let's get you to a psychologist. Like let's do whatever you're comfortable with. Let's get you off the smokes in life, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great way to use AI. That's a very, very positive way to use it, right?
Yeah.
Non-intimidating. And you're just saying, well, here's what the data says.
Yeah,
This thing's looking
exactly.
at data all over the world of 60-year-old smokers and saying, you got 5 years if you keep doing this, right? So, that's the way. And there's so many other examples in so many different industries where people are using it. And my only encouragement is for anybody like myself that you're in your 50s, you're in your 60s, you're a little intimidated with it, embrace it because it's a reality. It's here to stay. It's not going. It's not a trend. It's here.
Oh
It's going.
yeah, but it's a tool.
Yeah,
It's a tool you might as well use. In my investment club, they're using it to analyze the annual reports and things like that are horrible and tedious to read. They just, put them into AI and they ask for feedback. You can ask all kinds of questions and
yeah,
it's just, yeah, it writes reports. And I mean, the best example that I heard that made me really kind of find it fun and intriguing was somebody said it's like you teach it something and it immediately goes and tells all his friends, right?
yeah.
It's like, and then so they're all getting smarter at the same time. I mean, it's one thing, but right. So you might think, well, today it's dumb. It's not understanding this thing. Yeah, but you know what? As soon as you explain it, it will not only will it be smarter, but the whole of AI is going to be smarter. So I don't know. If I think people who tried it early on and found it a little bit cumbersome or just not that smart would be surprised now. I mean, here's a fun thing that happened. My friend has a sourdough starter, makes his own sourdough bread, and he gave a starter to a young person who's very comfortable and loves AI. So she said to AI, I've got this sourdough starter. What should I call it? And it came up with a, really great name for it. And then it ended up writing a song for her sourdough starter, which I just thought, and the song was fantastic. It was so funny and just good. It was great. And I thought, who the hell? Like that would not occur to me. But I think young people who are just like, let's ask AI, let's ask that they're just like getting really some cool, fun, enriching, and great songs too.
And there you go. And you know what? And you don't have to pay a copyright on the song or anything else. I mean, you just made the same point out that I'm making. It's like, look, use it for all the stuff that you don't have either the ability or desire to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I gave an example on the show last week. I said, when I was living in New York, I used to travel a lot, but I'd get home on Saturday afternoons. Like I'd be gone to Toronto or Montreal, like mostly East Coast. And I'd come back Saturday afternoon, I'd get home. And this time of year, I'd cut my lawn because I actually like to cut the lawn. I was outside. A lot of times I was in hotels all week and, so it was nice. And one of the guys that was one of my mentors said to me one day, he goes, why are you cutting your lawn? Well, because I like to do it. He goes, yeah, but let's look at it for a minute. He said, what could you pay a landscaper to cut your lawn? I said, I had back then like $50. He said, okay, what did you make last month average per day? And at that time, it was about $1,000 a day. Okay.
Yeah.
So he said, okay, so let's take 8 hours out for sleep, 8 hours out for everything else, 8 hours out for work. So let's say in those 8 hours, you made eight into 1,000 is whatever it is, $150 an hour. He said, how long does it take you to cut the lawn? I said, an hour and a half, 2 hours. He goes, okay, $50 to the landscaper, $300 that you'd make with your time in your business. Now, if you like to cut your lawn, that's fine. If that's your exercise for the day,
Yeah.
great, do it. But if you're doing it because you think you're saving the money you'd be paying a landscaper, you're actually costing yourself money. If you're not using AI, I would use the same example. You're costing yourself money doing things that AI could do for free.
And much better.
Yeah, and you're going to get professional stuff. Like,
Yeah.
just use it. I mean, it's we're living in an exciting time. I mean, sometimes I wish I was born 20 or 30 years later, so I would be here to use this stuff for another, 40, 50 years. And then sometimes I look at the world and I'm glad I am where I am, but can't seem to change that. But my only point about that is we're living at a remarkably exciting time in business
Yeah.
because we've got these tools that are space age that we can use, and they're either no expense or little expense to do so. I wrote a book. I wrote a book on final expense insurance a couple months ago, just for fun. I saw this thing online. It was like $97 or something to join it. Can't remember the name of it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just write a book just to see if it actually works. I put in a couple of keywords. It gave me back a book. It gave me a cover or choices of covers. I chose a cover and I stuck it on my johnsolleder.com website for free, just to educate people our age group of why they need final expense insurance as opposed to their regular insurance or no insurance that some of them have.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that to sell them life insurance. I don't care who they buy it from. Okay.
Yeah.
I did that because I wanted to educate people. I'm going, I'm not exaggerating. It didn't take me 45 minutes to put in what I wanted, have it spit back, read it, edit it a little bit, and say, okay, I got a product that at least people can read. If they know nothing about it, they can read it and they'll know more about it 45 minutes later than they did before.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
What
It's fantastic, right?
what
And you help somebody. It didn't take you any time, no money, and
exactly.
the world's a better place, right? Because you pulled that information out of AI.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I gotta
absolutely.
tell
I
you,
love it.
I like that $97 because I can tell you what it costs to write these.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's $97. Wow, I was a little behind the curve on that one.
Yeah, well, so John, I mean, our time has gone flying by. We're like way over, so I don't want to take any more of your time. I just want to ask you in parting, because we've had some really cool, interesting conversations, but I want to make sure that we're leaving people with what you feel you want to make sure that they know, what you want them to take away from this conversation. So what did I not ask you that you wish I would have asked you, or what do you just want to reiterate that we've kind of brought up?
Well, I really just that, you have a lot of business followers. You have a lot of people who are in business for themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, look, we're living in some unique times. We're living in some great times. Take full advantage of them. Don't retire too early. That's my second thing. Okay. I have
Yeah.
friends that have retired that financially are now kicking themselves because they're missing opportunities. And like take your time on it. And the other thing is, recognize too, from a health standpoint that your health is in your own hands.
Yeah.
I look at my father and my uncles who were all dead by the age I am now.
Yeah.
They all smoked and drank.
Yeah.
Like, so take your nutrition serious. Okay. Get to the gym. I was at the Fit Expo last week in California. I ran into Jay Cutler, who was at one time was Mr. World. And ironically, it was his 50th. And I said, Jay, one bit of advice. How do people live longer? Get to the gym. So that's my advice. Get to the gym, get to the swimming pool, get on your bicycle, walk your dog,
Yeah. Find something you like to do.
take care of yourself because the world is, like I said, the world's got so many great opportunities ahead. I don't mean just to make money. I mean, that's part of it, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, so many great things ahead of us and so much innovation that's going to come because of AI in terms of our longevity. So
Yeah.
take full advantage of it, but you can only do that if you're healthy.
Yeah.
Take good care of yourself physically, mentally, spiritually. Okay. Have a long, great life. Okay. Because, we're living at a great time, I believe.
Excellent advice. Thanks, John. And
Thank you.
hopefully we're all going to take that advice and just squeeze the most you can right out of this life. We could definitely go down a whole nother set of roads, but we're not going to do that. We're going to thank everybody for tuning in. I know you got a lot out of John's conversation today, and I want you to just think, like, take a few minutes, jot down a few people's names, and forward this episode to them. They are going to be psyched and excited, just like you are from listening to John. And then come on back next week and see what's in store. Take care.